Remember what this is? Yes, it's a good old cassette that I fetched out of one of my good old tape boxes. And that, of course, means that I'm back with another episode of my tape memories. The little segment on my channel where I go through old mixtapes and talk about the music on those tapes and memories connected to the music, to those tapes. Sometimes I also digress a little bit. So I'm in full on nostalgia mode for this series. It's a bit more personal. And I'm happy if you like to, listen along to my ramblings and maybe also share some of your memories down in the comments. So, even though this series is called Tape Memories, and the starting point for this episode indeed is a tape, a cassette, I will be talking more about vinyl singles. That means good old 45s, because I found this tape, an oldie mix of mine, where I taped a lot of the vinyl singles my parents had, mostly my mum. I think she brought some old vinyl singles with her. Some of those maybe also belonged to my uncle, or she told me that he got some 45s for free from an old jukebox sale. And of course, this music is very much strongly connected to memories of mine. 45 singles were quite a mystery for me. I knew, LPs and cassettes, of course, and the radio, but those small vinyl singles were really something odd for me when I saw them first. They were also not really no longer an integral or a full part of my parents' collection. They used to have those vinyl singles in an old chest, or I think even down in the basement in the cellar, so they wouldn't play them anymore. But I don't know, one rainy afternoon, my mother got them out and we browsed through those singles. Um, Also, youth memories of her own, of course. And then quickly, those vinyl singles moved upstairs into my sister's room. She had a record player and also not a lot, but a few records that she used to play. Those were the 80s, so she would be listening at that time, to stuff like Milli Vanilli. Girl, you know it's true. I love you. A bit of Kylie Minogue, which she had on tape, as far as I remember. And the German hit sensation of the 80s, Modern Talking. I think she even had the first Modern Talking album as a full-length LP, and at least one of those records, either Milli Vanilli or Modern Talking, later on were destroyed by her. I believe it was Milli Vanilli when, the whole lip sync scandal became public. Of course, those 45s from my mom were a lot older. even some music that came out when she was but a little child. So I don't believe she had or she bought all those 45s herself. So yeah, probably some of those records came from her older brother, or well, we don't know with all of those 45s. And I was always a bit fascinated by those little discs, and of course, their picture sleeves. Sometimes you had the band on the sleeve, but sometimes those 45s simply were text and a bit of graphics or some other images, very often quite colorful. And then on the other hand, some of those old vinyl singles were already in kind of spare sleeves or ersatz sleeves, simply white blank sleeves, because I guess the original cover sleeves were lost over time. And yeah, those singles were quite a musical mixture and a lot of music that I enjoyed for quite a while. Some of those singles were really oldies but goldies, ranging from Cadillac by the Renegades.
Well, my baby drew up in a brand new Cadillac. My baby drew up in a brand new Cadillac.
To Let's Dance by Chris Montes.
Hey baby, won't you take a chance? Say that you'll let me have this dance. Well, let's dance.
Another Chris Andrews and Pretty Belinda.
Lived in a boathouse down on the river. Wanted to have her, Pretty Belinda. Her eyes were exciting, her hair it was golden, her lips were inviting, my heart she stolen.
Mendocino by the Sir Douglas Quintet.
Mendocino, Mendocino, well, I such a groove to blow your mind in the morning. We used to walk through the park, make love along the way in Mendocino.
And even Midnight in Moscow by Kenny Ball. So I would sneak in from time to time when my sister wasn't there to use the record player and listen to some of those old 45s. There were two that I was particularly fond of. One being a single by Giorgio, before he became worldwide known as the electronic music pioneer Giorgio Moroder. Giorgio released a couple of more or less bubblegum singles under the name of Giorgio. One of them was Son of My Father, and we both, my sister and me, we loved this song.
Father said to me, we gotta have your life right. Up you go to school where you can learn the rules, they're right.
And the other single I used to play a lot was T.Rex's Hot Love.
She ain't no witch, and I love the way she twitch, She ain't no witch, and I love the way she twitch, I'm a labor of love in my Persian gloves,
But I didn't always need to sneak into my sister's room. We would sort of play or do our own little home discotheque. So we bought colored light bulbs. You could get light bulbs in green, red, blue, yellow, and even black, which rather looked like violet or purple. And so we would screw them in and have our own little colored light show and play old vinyl singles and have a bit of a party. Of course, some of those old vinyl singles were cooler than other ones, and amidst some really cheesy pop kitsch, a bit of Schlager, and as mentioned, rather bubblegum pop, there were some really wild singles that we, of course, enjoyed a lot. For example, Deep Purple's Fireball. Crazy drumming to this day. And also a Led Zeppelin single, Rock and Roll, with Four Sticks as the B-side. And then a band called Big Bertha, or Bertha, which, as I've only now researched, was one of the early bands of Cozy Powell.
Do you think I'm gonna survive in morning?
Some of those 45s were already a bit scratchy, and I'm afraid we also ruined one or two of those singles by simply playing them so often, but also not really handling them carefully. But when I got a bit older, I realized, okay, wow, those 45s, some of them are not in the best shape anymore, so maybe I'll take the opportunity to copy them onto tape before they will be ruined or gone forever. And that's what I did on this tape. And if you want to listen to some of those tracks in full, find a Spotify link to a playlist made specifically for this episode in the video description down below. Taping vinyl onto a cassette always felt like something a bit more special, as opposed to simply recording songs from the radio or copying from tape to tape. There was always a bit more time involved, and you had to control the volume and stuff like that. I always liked recording or copying vinyl onto tape. The old vinyl singles then later on moved back downstairs into a cellar, namely when we moved places. We moved to another town. I've talked about that in a different episode. And we moved to a sort of bungalow, a more modern building, where we put the old record player and the 45s into the cellar. And we also then would sometimes listen to music with the sons from the neighbor house. Those two houses were built exactly the same way, and they also shared, I remember, a free phone line between those two houses. So that, of course, was an invitation for a lot of very silly prank phone calls from one house to the next, doing funny noises on the phone. And we used to meet with the boys from next door in the cellars of each of the houses. The neighbors later on also had a television down in one of the basement rooms, where we not only did a lot of pillow fights, but also spent time watching VHS movies, a lot of silly films on VHS, preferably Bud Spencer and Terence Hill. Or the really gritty and raw Arnold Schwarzenegger action movies. And down in our own cellar, guest room, I now had free access to that old record player. It had the speakers integrated, so it really was a record player, a small record player, specifically made for playing 45s and listening to them. And that was when I really got more into those old singles, also realizing that sometimes I even enjoyed the B-sides, the flip sides of those singles more than the A-sides. For example, a single by Christie, Yellow River was the famous hit, was the A-side, but I enjoyed the B-side a lot more, and that was a song called Down the Mississippi Line.
We're doing fine, my baby and I got a long way to go. We're doing fine, my baby and I down the Mississippi line.
And my mom also had the Black is Black single by Los Bravos. They were a band from Spain. And I mean, that is a classic oldie, but if you flipped that vinyl single, you would discover a song that years later was also rediscovered by Quentin Tarantino for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But I loved that B-side long before I even knew somebody like Quentin Tarantino existed. It's a song called Bring a Little Lovin', and yeah, it's fantastic.
I know that it's 10 and you're staying in.
So sometimes on a Saturday or Sunday morning, I would spend a good hour down in the cellar and play those old 45s, pretending I was doing my own little oldie hit parade radio show. And this week, climbing up 2 positions, here are the Osmonds with Crazy Horses.
Crazy horses, all got riders under you and Crazy horses, crazy horses, never stop and they never die, they just.
Of course, what was also special about 45s, so or 7-inch vinyl singles, was that they usually had a big hole in the middle where you had to put in a plastic piece in order to let them play on the record player. Sometimes those pieces would be missing, but the record players had this, or nowadays they have this coming with the record player, so you can not only play the ordinary full-length LPs, the big ones, but also have this to put in the middle in order to play old 45s, and that was something I found was very unusual back then. Also, as mentioned, a lot of those paper sleeves were pretty much ruined or got lost. Nowadays, vinyl singles are of a little bit better quality. This is a thicker paper. Some nowadays even are more kind of cardboard material. This, by the way, is an Austrian band, a kind of power trio, playing some 60s influenced progressive hard rock. But this is fairly, well, more or less recent. This came out in 2015. So this is not one of the singles I was listening to as a kid, and it's not on this tape. But hey, maybe I will talk about some Austrian rock bands at some other point here on my channel. So yeah, back then, and as I rediscovered on this old tape, it was also a lot of more lightweight bubblegum pop rock from the late 60s, early 70s, and I can't mention them all here. It probably would also be boring. But here, to close this episode, are a few examples.
We are going down, Jordan, we are going down, Jordan, we are going down, Jordan, we gonna walk the heavenly road.
Yeah, and even though all these songs are not directly from my childhood days, because that were the 80s, this music was a lot older. I really get a very nostalgic feeling when I hear those tracks, and yeah, it's always good fun to revisit these old childhood, these music memories from time to time. So let me know if you are still listening, or if you're still playing vinyl singles from time to time, or if you remember old 45s from your childhood days. What were your favorites? So much for the tape memories. Until then, keep listening and keep playing those old tapes and vinyl singles. Bye-bye.